What's up, everybody? It's Kyle with Cassadon Realty. Today is question number 23, and today's topic is a very important topic, and I believe it is sometimes misunderstood between buyers, sellers, and even real estate agents as well. So today's question is the buyer's agent commission always paid by the seller in a real estate transaction? And the answer to that is no, it is not always paid by the seller. It's a very sometimes controversial topic because I have heard other real estate professionals tell their clients that the seller always pays the buyer agent commission, and that's just not the case. It is the case most of the time. Generally speaking, the seller will pay or offer to pay a certain amount to the buyer's agent for procuring the buyer, but that is not always the case. So it's very important to understand what the situation is as far as what buyer agent compensation is being offered in a particular transaction or on a particular listing. So from my experience with my buyers or my buyer clients, most of the time the seller is the one that pays the buyer agent commission. There are circumstances though where the seller is not offering any buyer agent commission or is not offering enough to satisfy whatever the agreed upon commission is between the buyer and the buyer's agent. So if that's the case, that is something that has to be worked out between the buyer and the buyer's agent. The seller is not obligated or required to pay that. I do recommend to my seller clients to offer a certain percentage to help procure a buyer. It can help, it definitely helps market your home and makes it more palatable and more attractive to buyers, since they have a peace of mind that they would not have to come out of pocket for their own representation and they are fairly represented in a real estate transaction. Because as a buyer, I don't think you want the only professional in the transaction to be working for the seller. It just might not be in your best interest. So what I always tell people is the buyer's agent is compensated based off of whatever is agreed upon between the buyer and the buyer's agent in their buyer agency contract. So if you're a buyer and you're working with a buyer's agent, you want to make sure you have a buyer agency contract so that you understand what fee is due to the buyer's agent upon settlement. So if there's any negotiation or anything that needs to be done after that, or if there's any amount out of pocket that needs to be paid by you directly to your buyer's agent, you know that ahead of time. So when I run into these situations where the seller or the listing broker is not offering enough to cover my minimum buyer agency fee, then that's a conversation that I have to have with my buyer before we make an offer, and usually before we even look at the home, so that they know that ahead of time. So it's not something that should ever creep up on a buyer. Buyers should be completely aware of what the situation is going into it, but it's important to understand in this market, some sellers are not offering as much as certain buyer agents minimum buyer agency commission is. So if you are a buyer that is not currently working with a buyer's agent, or you think you might want to be working with a buyer's agent to represent you solely down the road, feel free to give me a call or a text. I'd be happy to arrange a buyer consultation so I can go over all this information in a lot more detail for you to understand. Buyer consultations are free of charge, no obligation. Obviously, if you just want to have a buyer consultation just for informational purposes, I'm happy to do that with you as well. So yeah, that's about all I have on this. Again, I just can't stress enough on how much you as a buyer should have a buyer agency contract with your buyer's agent, so that none of this is a surprise down the road, that you understand how a buyer agent is compensated and agency laws and things like that. So I hope this information is helpful. Until tomorrow, have a great day. Thanks.